guys, a super warm welcome to episode 5. Yes, episode 5 of Talking Trends, where every single month I have the amazing opportunity to speak to people like Emma Barry about the latest trends and predictions in the global fitness industry. Now, Emma's background is with Les Mills, with Equinox, and now she's an amazing coach, a mentor, a speaker, a consultant. Have I missed anything, Emma? An author?
That'll do.
That'll do. So a super warm welcome, Emma Barry. Thank you so much for joining me today for Talking Trends. Now, let's just fill everyone in on what you've been up to in the last 7 days, because you've been jet setting around the world. Tell us, what have you been up to?
Yes, I sort of TikTok between here and Europe. So I have a half-time role with Basic Fit in Europe. So I came from there, came back home, spent a day with the fam, and then came down under to see you. And I know Alicia Smith, I think, is on this as well. But with the Fuel Summit, Fuel Women's Business Fitness Summit, and an incredible couple of days in a women-facing event, which was just superb. And I know that you were there for a part of it, because you, as always, being across many conventions, were sort of toggling yourself across town as well. So really just I do a lot of the trend work, a lot of presenting at events like this, a lot of woman role model work. So there's a lot of that coming through now, female leadership, and consulting. So consulting to people and projects. So that's sort of sucking my life right now. But it really was an incredible time in Sydney. And I think that was really breaking new ground. I think we saw some scientific research and products there that I have not seen at any other conventions, and just some really forward-thinking leadership styles, which I know that we'll talk about in this call.
Well, you are a very busy lady, and we are so grateful for your time. And so, Emma, let's kick things off. We're talking about trends and predictions in the fitness industry, and we're going to start off with marketing. What are your feelings around the area of marketing as far as upcoming trends and predictions are concerned?
Right, so I'm predominantly in the boutique space, and most of my clients in that space are 100% on social. So I think, it's a well-known fact now that Instagram stories is sort of the number one way that people are engaging. And we know that Facebook/Instagram are beginning to build out some pretty robust e-commerce platforms off there. So I would say that's pretty much, for the next little while. And we know that it keeps evolving. Social media is such a beast. But for now, everything I'm seeing is in that space.
Oh, that is such an important one, and I love that you brought it up, because we actually just had Tyler J. McCall, Instagram expert, join us on the show last week. It was episode 245, and he actually talks about Insta stories, and not only that, but talks about how we can work towards taking our followers and turning them into customers, and just how important it is that we're having genuine conversations on that platform. So great one in that area. So let's move on to sales, Emma. What are your thoughts around trends in the area of sales?
Well, again, and this comes from my deeper expertise. So I serve boutiques at one end and budget clubs through Basic Fit at the other. So those are two sort of sales models that have broken the marriage of membership, if you like. So boutiques at one end have the pay-go model, pay as you go, which as people start to find the boutiques, and I know that boutiques in Australia are very new, so everyone's kind of just going through this process. But once you find what you love, you then find yourself going back to being happy to pay a monthly or a 6 monthly or an annual membership if you value what you're attending. So we're beginning to see that whole loop over time, which is very interesting. And then in the budget space, we start at the minimal possible price. So we have a price point of about €15 in Europe for a month, which is an incredible value, brand new equipment, 40,000 square foot club, you name it. But if you want those additional things like live classes, which I'm involved in a big project around that, like right now, if you want to add the younger water, if you want to add personal training. So there's an add-on model. But again, everything I'm talking about today is around the number one trend, which aside from technology, from my viewpoint, is hyper personalization. I want exactly what I want when I want it, and I don't want to pay $1 more. And that's kind of our new world.
Interesting. So when you were just talking about those big box gyms and that model there, to me, I think back to when things like Foxtel and Pay TV launched, when we had kind of that base platform, and then it's the add-on and the add-on.
Yep.
Do you find, in your experience, do a large majority of people take up those extras, or do the majority stick with the foundation, the base model?
Both, really. You've got some people that are just there for the basics, and then you've got plenty of people that just literally want what they want. And as with everything, it comes down to awareness and exposure. So we see that in our sales. So obviously each of these divisions has its own team and its own division, and we definitely see spikes on the months where certain things are promoted. So a lot of it is awareness, and then actually, but you have to see the value. What I'm finding is, that word you used before is that people really want something that authentically fits with their life. So I think they're becoming more averse to, don't sell me stuff that I know I'm not going to want later, so that there's definitely that step away feeling, which I think is healthy, actually.
Absolutely. So let's move on to our third topic, which is managing teams. Tell us a little bit about any thoughts that you have around trends in that area moving forward.
Right, and I think you and I both spent some time in this deep environment over the last week, and we are definitely seeing a shift towards 360 or whole person leadership. And I saw Amy's chit chat previously around Francesca, and I know that you're a big fan as well. And look, these are leaders, and I've had the fortune of living most of my corporate life under female leadership, where there was more resilience taught, there was more diversity in terms of thought and solutions and these sorts of things, and also bringing your emotions to work, being able to be a human. Moving from needs to wants. I mean, the old days of just ticking the boxes of the Gallup, I've got my tools. People now expecting, and not just the millennials and the Gen Zs, but actually everyone is asking, hashtag living my best life. Everyone wants to be living their best life every year now, not kind of putting in 30 or 40 years and hoping it's waiting at the end of the rainbow. So there's more of an immediacy, I think, now around wanting everything to be lined up all the time. And if you think about it, why not? Why should we not be like this? So there's a lot more holistic, and I've just gone through the process of PH 360. I know you'll be familiar with that, but I'm loving that because it's whole person coaching, and it's nudging me when I need it in the sections that I need it in based on who I am, physically, mentally, emotionally. So we're definitely stepping into that. And there's so many great examples of that around the world now. And when you look to the Fortune 500s and you start revealing some of those interviews, a lot of those CEOs are saying, we're this successful because we have more diverse leadership at the top tables. And some of that's female, some of that's multicultural, whatever. We are able to think right around a problem rather than just in the old way that we used to just deal with it. 2 or 3 views and let's go with my way, which used to be the old style of leadership. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. I think there are so many more examples coming through of diversity in leadership. And one of the things that Francesca Schuler, who you just mentioned, spoke to me about was not only diversity in leadership, but also diversity within our team environment. Mm-hmm. So saying, in order to properly have our team connect with our members need to feel comfortable at all times, from the moment they walk in the door to the moment that they're with a PT or they're walking into a group fitness class. That means that that traditional kind of idea of what a fitness professional looks like, we need to come out of that space and say, well, fitness professionals come in all shapes and sizes and have different backgrounds and have gone through different things. So I think that word diversity, which you just talk about, is relevant across the full business scope. Certainly the leadership side of things, but full business, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And I think related to that is also this real big shift. We're certainly feeling it in the US, which is I'm going to lift my mug, and I do apologise, but I did do a little, there you go. Yes. But talking trends, I'm so sorry. Alicia, sorry, I left it on one of your tables at the Park Royal, so I feel terrible after that effort.
Alicia, you guys got a talking trends.
Talking trends, I love it. But sort of... oh goodness! Now I've lost my train of thought. I was trying to be so clever.
You're going to say diversity US. You're seeing.
Oh, we're seeing a lot of shift, like the old Hollywood days, where works for hire. So people aren't hired now for 40 hours a week, 30 of which they do a whole lot of crap that they don't want to do, and sit there and check social media. So people are being hired for the things that they're very good at and put together with a team that beautifully complement that. So there's a lot more thought, and certainly in the teams that I'm on now, there's a much nicer fit. There's a lot more thought going into, here's your skill set, here's how you like to work, you two are going to get on great. There's a power duo right there. If we put those two people together, they're going to get a lot done. So there's a lot more thought going to that rather than just hiring a person for a job of which they don't end up doing much of that job. It becomes this whole other thing that they didn't start for, don't enjoy, and they're not ridiculously productive because of that. So works for hire is a big trend we're seeing here. And of course, the way that employment law is and all of those things, there's so much risk and all of those things around that as well.
That is really interesting, Emma. Is that a particular industry that you've seen that in the US?
Well, not really. I mean, you think about it, it's look at Fiverr, look at Upwork, you look at all of that
Yeah,
stuff, you know. So
yeah,
even that's spreading all industries, and everyone also probably something else feeding into this is the fact that there's a lot more entrepreneurial spirit out there now, I feel, because alongside I want to just be working on passion projects or I just want to do what I'm good at, comes how do I create that life, which probably means I'm not 100% working for someone else. So then you want to go out and find cost-effective ways to market, to sell, to create your brochures, etc. And you can do that very cheaply for a few dollars, a few $100s, a few $1,000s, whatever your budget. So I think the fact that those platforms have been born is testament to that. And then I think when you look at the big companies, sure, you've still got big corporates, but a lot of them are fast becoming irrelevant. You know, there's a lot of inefficiency in something that has layers and layers of leadership, and we know that the leadership structures are flattening. And I'm pretty sure Francesca doesn't have 9, reports all the way up to her. It's kind of, you're hired for a job, here's your team, get on with it, report back to me when you're done. That sort of style, which is very invigorating.
and I think it's interesting that you mentioned that whole entrepreneurial sort of side of things where we're seeing this shift, because I know that you're a big fan of KPI, Daniel Priestley, as am I. And if anyone hasn't read the book or heard the interview that I did with Daniel a couple of years ago, what I'll do is I'll pop that link in the show notes. Or in the comments below, I should say. But there's another book called Known. I've just started another one which is on the same topic. So I think you are so spot on when you say there's this kind of shift happening across the board. So interesting to see how the fitness industry correlates with that. So Emma, let's move on to retention and customer service. Do you have any thoughts or predictions in that area?
Yeah, again, this just comes from my experiences. Quite often the touch points are in place within a business, but often there isn't a through line. There isn't like a really nice end-to-end journey. And again, this is something else that the boutiques have taught us. Come in and do this one thing really well, from the way that you book, pay, come in and leave. So whether it's retention strategy or customer service, there just has to be this seamless, beautiful, delightful movement from one thing to the next. You hide what doesn't need to be seen, and that's where technology comes in and makes it automated. You don't want to see yourself paying. You don't want to go through this painful process of what are you here to do? Have you booked in? And I think that's where a lot of the big fitness business is really struggling right now, because it's really hard to flip from an old model, which was just I come in the turnstile and I do something. And it was funny, I was just at Virgin Active the other day, and they're in this process of shifting from no system to a manual system to a digital system. And it's hard when you have a huge member base. I come in, I might go to the cycling class I booked for, or I might not. And if I don't, do I get a strike? How does that get recorded in a way that doesn't annoy the members? So all of these things, it's actually in many ways so much easier if you're like a boutique and you're starting from fresh with new ground rules, much smaller group of people, only there for one point. So I liken it to the boutique process. So I just don't think there's a real seamless, beautiful way that the journeys are being built.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. So in my club that I belong to and that I teach to, we've also gone through that transition where it was, standing in line to do your pass, to get taken and everything. We've now gone to a policy where essentially you self-scan on the way in. And from a customer service perspective, what I guess that ease of use has done is just means that you don't no longer have to deal with those queues. You can go straight in. But at the same time, I always think when we're automating those processes and we're trying to make things more seamless, what the boutique studios do phenomenally well is the people on those welcome desks are so welcoming. They really excel at their customer service skills, and I think that is a huge part of this component that you're talking about. Is yes, we're going through these transitions and we're starting to automate processes, but we need to make sure that human element is still absolutely in your face, providing that customer service experience for our members.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is the point of automation and technology. And I think, I still hear a lot of people talking about it as if it's the enemy. It's there to enable you. It's to take away those processes.
Let's move on to our next section, which is fitness programming. And apologies because I lost you just in that last 30 seconds of the rest of our conversation. So guys, welcome and thank you for joining us again. So when it comes, this is your your baby, fitness programming. So, Emma, when it comes to fitness programming, what are your thoughts around trends for that area?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of hybrids. You've got all the pure, so wherever there's a trend, so call it boutique, where we've gone very focused on cycling and bar and meditation, what have you. And then we're beginning to see those mashups coming back in again. So people are wanting to jump on the bike and then do yoga, kettlebells, and then do some other kind of running thing, or, so we're beginning to see a little bit of that. The other thing I would say is we're definitely beginning to see a lot more of partial workouts or express workouts, and this is in part driven by virtual on-demand at-home workouts. So we know when you're looking at the amount of time that people are spending on screens, it could be something like from 8 minutes to 20 minutes. That might be the majority of time that people are actually spending exercising and working their core or doing a little bit of cardio or some yoga or what have you. So we're definitely seeing those trends, and they're beginning to come back into the clubs as well. And we're beginning to see people sort of piece workouts together. But again, we touch in on that hyper-personalisation again. People are also wanting a much better experience. So now that we've had, some incredible at-home and on-demand products launched throughout the world, we've got Peloton, Les Mills On Demand, you've got, Thor's Centre app, something from down under there. These are all beautiful executions of fitness. And then you're actually seeing what's happening in the clubs and the virtual clubs. And the virtual are really a stepping stone into live experiences, but they're sort of reframing this whole thing around, if you feel tight, stand up and do some hip openers, and sit down, do some hip openers, and in 10 minutes perhaps get back to work. So I'm beginning to see a lot of stuff around that, which is integrating into your life rather than I have to go to the gym for 2 hours and kind of get really hot and sweaty. So these are just some of the things I'm seeing, and that they're big generalizations because every country that I go to is at a different stage of, we're having so much fun today. At a different stage of life cycle. So really they're at a different point of what the market is ready for. So I'm seeing different trends.
Yeah, I think that idea of those bite-sized chunks of fitness is definitely something I am starting to see more and more in the market. And I think, as you say, when we think about personalization, it is really working towards, how is someone living their lifestyle, what environments are they working in, and how are we providing fitness solutions accordingly. One of the things that you just said in there was mashup classes, and it's not really something that I've personally come across, and I would love to know, is that happening in the US where people are combining? I mean, besides going to your Soul Cycle and doing your cycle and then picking up your dumbbells, what are some other examples of those mashup style classes that you're talking about?
Yes, I mean, I think there's a lot of innovation, to be honest, coming out of Asia at the moment as well. So, I think of some of my friends that I follow over, like Tracy Minnick at KL at Fire Station, for example. Yeah. So they are having a lot of great success with things like cycle and yoga. Slightly shorter formats, maybe you do 30 minutes and 15 or something like that. So it's still sort of within that magic hour. But, just the desire for, I want to get my hip workout in, and then I want to make sure that I'm not getting tight through my hips, hip flexors, those sorts of things. And if you think about it, you feel great, you've got your cardio in, and you've done a little bit of that recovery. So I think, recovery is another massive trend which is finally coming in. I mean, we've been boning on about recovery at Equinox since when I joined, 4 or 5 years ago. But it takes that long for things to swing. Look how long it's taken for meditation. So meditation has always been there in yoga, but that's beginning to have its place in the greater ecosystem, and we know that because it's so popular on the apps, so it's like the number one fitness app is, Calm and Headspace and all those guys. But if you think about it, it hasn't been great in clubs because people don't want to drive for 45 minutes across town, try to find a frigging car park, lie down and fall asleep and think that that's valuable. Yeah. They would much rather do it before they enter the boardroom and they need to focus, or before they go to bed and they need to chill out and get a good night's sleep. So that greater ecosystem of fitness, be it on your phone, at work, on vacation, people are looking for that continuity. And I think these mashups, on demand, all of these things are beginning to feed into that greater ecosystem. So other mashups that I see, so stuff I'm seeing here, you might be doing TRX on an unstable surface and things like that. So they're beginning to combine,
like a Bose,
or stuff like that. So we're sort of, and you know what fitness is like. We go round and round. Specialise, cross-train across the week. Go hard, go slow, go. On and on it goes. So I think, we will continue to see the pendulum, but I also think, and you and I are both engaged in the metrics are going to start guiding how healthy we are. And I think there's going to be a lot less gut feel, and there's going to be a lot more data-led guidance going forward. Personally, I mean, I get that through Shay and PH360. It tells me how I'm going, and we're all wearing the watches and the straps and what have you. We're beginning to get some great feedback around, you know what, your resting heart rate was up this morning. You actually shouldn't train today. So that stuff's beginning to come in, and in the next 5 years, it'll be unrecognisable fitness, I believe, for those that are following the technology.
Yeah, that is such an important point, Emma, and I know that you and I are both MyZone addicts, and we've had a lot of fun with that in the past. And I must admit, just as far as like a really big picture view goes, I think this is really fascinating because we've been broadcasting the Fitness Business Podcast for 4.5 years now, and this year I would say that we have done more episodes on technology and data than in the history of the show, and that is purely based on interest and demand. We're seeing new products come out. As you say, we're seeing new advances in technology. Just last week, at the same time as we were at Fuel, I was also at the Fitness Industry Technology Summit in down the road in Darling Harbour. And there is just this absolute interest and intrigue, I think, from fitness operators across the world as to what this new technology is, how we can use it, and how we can best benefit our members and that experience. And as you say, how can we best personalize that experience for our members? So it's an exciting space. And for anyone that hasn't checked it out, all you need to do is go back over the last couple of months, search the word data on fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, and you guys are going to come up with an absolute plethora of interviews that we've done on the topic all around this space. So, Emma, we're up to our last topic for today, which is my favorite, which is professional development, an area that I know that you're passionate about as well. So any thoughts around that area?
Yes, and again, we hosted a wonderful personal day before we did the actual summit, which was called Firestarter. So this is where we took 25 women into some deep work. Why do they exist? And we really took their business and personal goals and really shifted them throughout that day. So it was a very powerful day. Everyone had multiple opportunities to speak and to share their vision, and for us all to feed back into that space. So what became abundantly obvious to me during that day, and I don't just think it's an Australian thing, was, if nothing else, just work out seriously why you're on the planet. And it's not just, I just want to make people feel happy, or I just want to be fitter, or I want to teach people to be fitter. It's deeper and more specific and more passionate and more emotional than that. So my recommendation would be, do the deep work. So Simon Sinek's, launched a few books around this. He's spoken on a variety of platforms. Jerry Visca and CanFit Pro has done a bunch of work around this. A personal coach, a life coach. It's just keep asking the why and get deep down to why you exist. So, I thought I was just in the fitness industry to help people. So vague and not really exciting, not going to get me out of bed in the morning. So when I did the deep work 2 years ago, I came back with, I exist to inspire everybody to be explosively bold. So now that I've said that, it takes me outside the fitness industry, which was always a bit of a chip I had on my shoulder anyway, because I sort of wanted to apply to personal development and also business. But it also talks to my brand. So I take that as every day I get up and I run around the planet lighting fires under people and projects. That gets me out of bed, and I'm really excited. So now that I've done that, my whole life fell into order, one of your areas of expertise. You now know what to say yes and no to. You know what juices you up and what doesn't. And if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And so you start shifting average things out, and you only do things that really turn you on. So my life now is I only do passion projects. If I don't feel it, I don't do it. And I don't have to do it because I'm in charge of my own life. So this is what I'm really passionate about people doing now, is finding their why and then really doubling down on it. And it cleans up your whole life. If you're vaguely dancing around, you're kind of spending a lot of time in the mediocre. And the litmus test for this is at least 80% of what you do, what you're really good at and what lights you up. And if it isn't, just start shifting things across. Find your why and then start shifting things out that don't serve you. It either fills you up or it drains you. So make that decision. And hey, we've all got to do our taxes. So there's a little bit of, we don't want to do that.
That's got to be done. Emma, I absolutely love that message. And for anyone that's watching right now that is in that space, because I think a lot of people do get caught up in this, in the idea of what is my why, finding my why. In addition to that Simon Sinek resource that you just mentioned, which is called Start With Why, there's a fabulous follow-up book that was written to that, which is called Find Your Why. And I don't think as many people know about that, but the reason that I love that book so much is it actually workshops steps that you can take to find your why. And it was co-authored by Simon Sinek and Peter Docker, and it's a very practical guide. So if anyone's kind of struggling in that area and they just need a little bit of guidance, that's a fabulous book to check out. So it's called Find Your Why, and you can use it for yourself, but you can also use it with your teams if you want to help some others out as well. And so to finish off with today, Emma, just give us a quick insight into where we're going to see you. What events have you got coming up for the rest of 2019?
Right, so we're in the back half of the year. Whew, where did this year go? So let me see, I had to write these down because there's a few. So September, I'll be in Sao Paulo in Brazil, so I haven't been there for many years, and I've been begging for 3 years, so I'll be heading back there to a business summit. That's towards the end of September. October is back with the FIBO, so FIBO USA in Miami, and I'll also be heading over to FIBO South Africa. So I've never been to South Africa, so I'm very excited to present there as a part of the FIBO brand. And then in November, we'll finish off the year with the Les Mills Mega Quarterly, which is in Veldhoven, which is in the Netherlands. And this is one of my favourite events because it's massive. There's thousands of instructors, but it feels like there are hundreds there. They somehow managed to make it very intimate. And Ramon and the team are very good at running a wonderful 2-day summit. It's got business aspects, it's got all the classes, beyond Les Mills as well. And then, of course, he's a DJ, so they have a kick-ass party at the end. So got to finish the year on a party, right?
That sounds incredible, Emma. Well, look, thank you so much. Personally, thank you for everything that you do for our industry. Thank you for all the support that you give our show. You're an amazing ambassador. We are very grateful for everything that you do. And thank you for joining us today and hanging out and talking about trends for the global fitness industry.
Yeah, so welcome. And sorry it was all interrupted, but it's all part of it.
It's Facebook Live. This is what happens.
It's not perfect, right? It's not perfect.
Happens.
Yeah.
It's authentic.
Yeah, I love it.
And shout outs to everyone that watched us and joined us today. So that concludes episode 5 of Talking Trends, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be cutting this video together and distributing it so you guys can watch it in full at any time that you like. And please make sure that you share it with the team, with your teams. I'll also be popping all of those resources that we talked about. I'll pop it down in the comments in this video as well. Emma Barry, thanks
so
much.
Guys. Have a great week.
Today. See you, everyone.
Bye.